Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
All I want to know if you got your popcorn ready. Do you got your popcorn ready?
5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes!
I said, are you strong? They said, I'm strong if you strong. And I said, we strong then.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
Darren McCarty gets his shots in at Claude Lemieux. And look who came all the way out to try to help. Patrick Waugh. Oh, my goodness.
You are listening to the Doc and Jock Show on the Detroit Sports Podcast.
All right, everybody. Welcome to episode 72 of the Detroit Sports Podcast, the Doc and Jock Sports Program. I am the Doc, John Macaroon.
I'm the man. Woo!
Joining me is my cousin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski.
Every time I go out, you know I got to show out.
Merry Christmas, cuz. What's happening?
Merry Christmas, bro hammer. What's going on, buddy?
Man, another great week. I'm so excited. I'm looking forward to breaking down all the recent Detroit sports news. Tons of news happened in the last week, but I just want to first start off by asking you a question because I know you're a journalist. You studied journalism at Oakland University. You got your degree, and I'm just curious, just based on the reporting on the Jim Harbaugh situation, this whole ordeal, I just want to kind of pick your brain a little bit to start the podcast about what they teach you in school regarding the use of sources to report. As a journalist, is it important to be first with the story, or is it more important to be reliable and accurate with your reporting? Just based on my observations of what's going on Twitter and how the national media and how the local media is breaking down this Jim Harbaugh situation, you can tell that sources, and I'm using air quotes, are very important to reporters and are very important in terms of getting information out. But it's kind of obvious that sources aren't exactly accurate all the time, and they're feeding information. They may have agendas. They may be trying to influence situations in the media. So I'm just curious, what's your take been so far on the coverage of the Jim Harbaugh situation and your thoughts on sources to get information out to the masses?
This has become the age-old question in what is now new journalism, because you have to be first, but you also have to be accurate. My thought process is nothing should ever sacrifice the accuracy of what you put out. But you always want to sit there because as a journalist, the way you basically make your name and make your money is by scooping other people. So you always want to be the first one there, but your information has to be right. I much rather have a source that I know, like when I go to read something, I go to places where I know that the information is accurate. I don't care who is first. I don't care who is right behind them. I want my stuff to be accurate so that when I go to sit there and put something else back out there to add to the conversation, the initial place where I pulled my information was correct. Because you would hate to put something out there and attach your name to something that is wrong or false. So I think the most important thing is correct information, factual information. You don't want to put something out there from a source that, like you said, has an agenda or is trying to, in this case with the Jim Harbaugh incident, possibly pit one against the other for some leverage. So you'd hate to see that happen. And you'd hate to be the one who's putting your name out there attached to something like that. So in my opinion, being factual and accurate is more important than being first. A lot of times what will happen is I'll hear something or I'll see something on Twitter, and then what I'll do is I'll start rooting around trying to find more information to corroborate that. Something that they teach you in J school is to always have at least two sources. So if you can find something, then find another source to be able to back that up, and that way you know it's accurate. And you don't want that source to corroborate what the original source was. So in a case like ESPN, you don't want to go to ESPN, find something, and then go, oh, hey, Adam Schefter said this, because you have to realize Adam Schefter is probably the one feeding ESPN this information, and that's where they're getting it from. So I believe being accurate is much better than being first.
Okay, and some of the issues that kind of sparked my interest in terms of what are they teaching you in journalism school is the whole issue regarding Joe Dumars. And I think it was talked about, but the significance is quite important. The third largest fine in NBA history. And for those of you who don't know the story, Joe Dumars was fined $500,000 by the NBA for leaking league memos to a reporter, Adrian Wojnarowski, who basically started breaking all of Detroit Pistons news. And on Twitter, he's at Woj Yahoo NBA, and he's a great NBA reporter. He's got a lot of sources, and there was an article written about him in terms of how he reports. He definitely blends the columnist and the journalist aspect of reporting, and he gives the facts, but also kind of puts his opinion in there. And so I'm just curious, when you read that, what was your thought about it? And per what you're taught at journalism school, is he doing the right thing in terms of how he reports?
Your job as a reporter is to cultivate sources, because your sources are what give you information, and your job as a reporter is to protect your sources at all costs. That's why a lot of times you don't have to divulge who your sources are, especially if this goes to court. There are ways for you to sidestep divulging who they are to protect their anonymity. With Adrian Wojnarowski, good luck. I don't know. I'm Polish and I'm struggling with it. So with his case, I don't necessarily have an issue with what he did. He went to basically the almighty source, the general manager, the guy who basically runs the team and who's going to be making these moves. On top of that, a lot of times, a lot of his sources came from agents who were either signing contract deals or working on negotiations with other teams. So these people are firsthand and have that experience and have what is going on basically in front of them. So I don't necessarily have a problem with him reporting those people as sources because he's trying to protect them. And yes, I think sometimes he was used to help leverage and cultivate deals that might not have been there. But as a reporter, again, this goes to being accurate and being first. I think he was being accurate because what he was being given was correct. And he was being first because nobody else had these inside scoops. So I don't think there was a big deal there. I don't think there was a huge issue there. Okay, so I think the bigger issue was with Joe Dumars actually pushing the information out there and releasing it when he probably shouldn't have been releasing that information.
Okay, so here's what piqued a lot of people's interest and where I'm coming from. In terms of being objective, Joe Dumars was pumping him the information, but in return, his articles were not quite exactly objective when he was writing about the fact that everyone knew the Pistons were horrible. They used
He didn't go and slam the Pistons.
He didn't go and not exactly slam the Pistons, but he wasn't objective, and his articles are not objective. So for me personally, now that I see this, I'm not willing to read that guy's stuff because he's on the take, in my opinion. You know, I agree that your job is to get sources, but at the same time, you got to be objective.
You have to be fair and balanced.
Fair and balanced, and
you're supposed to be unbiased.
Everyone knew that Joe Dumars, the end of his reign was a disaster.
Yes.
He used 2 off seasons to sign 4 of the worst contracts in the Pistons organization, and they're hindering him to this day. And we're going to talk about one of the contracts that was waived later on in the podcast. Joe Dumars, the articles written about him needed to be more objective, and it wasn't coming from him because he was on the take, wanting to get information. So that's where
this goes into what you were saying, where it kind of blurs that line between columnist and reporter. As a columnist, you're paid to have an opinion. And if your opinion is maybe persuaded by your relationship with somebody, that's okay because you're a columnist. If you're a reporter or you're a journalist, your job is to get the facts and present these facts as you know them to be true and as you see them to be fit. You're not supposed to put your own personal preference on them. So yeah, this kind of goes into that little bit of that gray area where, are you a reporter? Are you a journalist? Are you a columnist? What are you and what hat are you wearing? And I think maybe he needed to differentiate which hat he was wearing when he was writing which story. You know, it's okay to kind of put your own thoughts in a piece. Like Bill Simmons, I'm a big fan of him. I like what he writes. I like how he writes. He is not your typical journalist and he's not your typical reporter. He basically writes from a fan perspective, and he's done a great job of this, and he's done such a good job of it that he has basically turned blogging into reporting into a full-time job with ESPN where he is a basketball analyst. So he's a great example of a way that you can kind of take your opinion and kind of take your perspective, write about it, and then turn that into something much, much more.
And it's interesting, too, around town, too. You can tell the difference. A lot of people lean toward trusting national reporters and not so much blog sites. But these blog sites are hardcore, they're dedicated, and they put out information that sometimes is breaking news.
And they have
scoops.
sources, too.
And they have sources.
So, prime example, Deadspin. Deadspin originally started just as a blog site that was very fun and kind of obnoxious with some of the stuff that they would put out. Recently, it's been one of the more salacious sites to get some more in-depth news that doesn't get covered or hit on by national media.
And we have to definitely give all respect to our friends at the Detroit Sports Nation. Great website with a lot of articles, a lot of in-depth coverage. I don't take that stance in terms of judging a fan site or a site that's not quote-unquote led by professionals. It's so interesting how this Jim Harbaugh saga and some of the news regarding journalists has kind of brought journalism into the spotlight, and I thank you for answering those questions. So the last question I'm going to ask you is this. If you're a reporter, you're covering a team, you're trying to get ahead in your career, how would you have covered Joe Dumars? Would you have gone after him as a source? If a source had given you secret information and knowing that it would have maybe cause him a problem, but it gives you information, it gives you access, it gives you a good source, would you kind of write quote-unquote puff pieces to protect your source, keep them on the dial on your phone, or would you, find a way to creatively criticize someone that is obviously not doing a good job?
I'd have walked the line, and I would have took the information that he gave me, and in return, I would have basically told him, would have been straight up and upfront with him, said, I'm going to slam you this week. I have to do my job. You have a job to do. I have a job to do. I'm going to slam you. It's my job. Understand that there's no ill will here, but I have to take you to task, and I will give you a upfront copy before it goes to publish. If you have any issues with it, we can discuss it. And if something needs to be changed, we can possibly look at changing it. But that being said, don't expect me to sit there and take it easy on you. I have a job to do as well. And you can do that, and there are ways that you can go about that. And kind of the way I just said I would do it is how I would tackle that stance and how I would do that. You have to realize that as a journalist and as a reporter, you have to be loyal to your sources, but you also have to be loyal to your readership and to the people that you write to. You have to be able to give them credible information. You have to be able to speak to them and provide them with the knowledge that you have and the information that you feel that they need to get. And sometimes you have to take that stance where you have to slam your source. It has to be done. It's the way it is.
Okay, thank you very much. You answered my questions, and very interesting, how these stories come out and how the journalistic lines can be blurred. All right, cuz, let's get into the Pistons, who made some big news last week.
Jay Smooth.
Just cutting them. They tried, and Stan Van Gundy, as role of president, tried to unload Josh Smith, but teams who were interested in maybe getting him only wanted to send back horrible contracts that they signed. With that, Stan Van Gundy was like, you know what? We are in a rebuilding process. We just got to let him go. And I love how he comes out and tells us, well, we have the utmost respect for Josh Smith, and we didn't want him to sit on the bench. The reason why you cut him is because he's underperforming, and he was basically a cancer in the locker room, and he became a focal point for the fans. When you have a home game versus the Toronto Raptors, and it basically turns into a home game for Toronto, where the fans are cheering, "Let's go Raptors," louder than the fans that are there to watch your team, you know you have a problem. You know you have a PR disaster on your hands. They're taking these couple days in the last week to evaluate the Pistons, and they decided to axe Josh Smith. And I'm fully in agreement. They needed to do that. They need to start fresh. They need to wipe the slate clean and rebuild this team and remove all remnants of the Joe Dumars era. One piece is gone. The other one, still there, Brandon Jennings. A lot of people said, okay, when's Brandon going to be gone too? And I don't know if he's going to do that because he's a point guard and he's got some experience. But the first step was taken to improve the public relations for the Pistons. Awful start to the season. All credit to Stan Van Gundy. Had to do what he had to do. The luckiest guy in America, Josh Smith this year. He's going to get paid by one organization, and if he signs with another, he'll get more money.
Show me the money.
Josh Smith is having a very Merry Christmas.
I think this is a great move by the Pistons. You've seen what Josh Smith brought you. He brought you basically a headache and losses. And he was so detrimental to this team that they didn't even want him anymore. They were willing to pay him a buttload of money to just go away. When he was signed, he sat out there on free agency before the Pistons even picked up the phone to call him and say, hey, yeah, we're going to ink you to this gigantic deal that's going to submarine our team for years. People didn't even want him on the team. There are guys who have come out and basically said, we don't want him anywhere near us. He's cancerous. Now, that being said, somebody's going to go out there and somebody's going to pick him up. And they might get him on the cheap, and he might help a team win. But he definitely did not help this team win. I think he's a good complementary player who might come off a bench and might score you some baskets. But do you realize that the Pistons are more than a 12-point better offensive team per every 100 possessions without him? When he's on the bench, they score more without him. The Pistons are also going to get instant cap relief. There's a stretch provision signed in the CBA where the Pistons can basically stretch out Josh Smith's contract, and they're going to have to pay him $5.4 million until the year 2020, which totally sucks because this guy's on the books until 2020. So you're basically dealing with him for the next 6 years, but instantly you get that cap relief because he's basically off your books. He's not there anymore, and you're paying him a small portion of what you were supposed to pay him of that $27 million. On top of it, this team's going to be more flexible. The lineup that you're going to get on the floor is going to be more competitive, and you don't have to worry about having this cancer inside your locker room. I also think Stan Van Gundy has now put his foot down, and this is his poignant moment where he says, "This is my team. This is what we're going to do. This is how I want this ship ran." I just made an example of that guy. I'm willing to pay you to go away if you're going to sit there and you're going to screw up what we've got here. If you want to be a bastard and you want to not listen and you want to not follow the orders that I'm giving you and you don't want to participate with this team and you don't want to make this team better, I'll pay you to go away. I don't care. So I think this was a poignant moment, not just for Stan Van Gundy, but also for this organization, putting its foot down saying, hey, we expect more. We are not going to lose this way. We might lose, but we're not going to lose this way.
Now they decide to pay a guy who's not going to be on the roster when, by all accounts, everybody said the Pistons should have used the amnesty clause on Ben Gordon or Charlie Villanueva. And so you get rid of Ben Gordon, you send him out of town to Charlotte, and what happens as a result of that? Last year's pick that was supposed to go to the Pistons goes to Charlotte. So Tom Gores, his early reign as the Pistons owner, has gotten off to a shaky start. He's not always around. He's only there a handful of games a year. So he's got a management group running the Pistons. Stan Van Gundy is a great leader, and he's shown that he has the ability to correct problems by doing this move. But he has to take some accountability too. This is not a 5-win team. Something's going on. Something is amiss. You know, how funny is that? The lasting image of Josh Smith is going to be him missing 2 free throws. An 11-year vet averaging 13 points. What did Joe Dumars see in him to warrant that contract that he gave him? What was he seeing? It just goes to show Joe Dumars' ability to evaluate talent as his career evolved really lessened. And a point that I heard earlier in the week is that when he had his early tenure, he had played with several of the guys like Rip Hamilton, Chucky Atkins. He was in the mix, so he kind of knew what those guys were about. As more time progressed and he was away from the game, he was not as able to evaluate the talent, and it's so frustrating the impact that his moves have made. You had 2 years with huge money, and you signed Charlie Villanueva, Ben Gordon, and then in another offseason you signed Josh Smith and Brandon Jennings. We're at the bottom right now. This is the rock bottom moment for the Pistons. And now the onus has been set. This is a team that's rebuilding. We're going to be seeing a lot of young players. And there may be more moves ahead. Do you foresee any future moves going on later this week or in the future to help bolster this team?
I'm glad you said this is the rock bottom right here, because there's no place else for this Pistons team to go but up. And yeah, I expect to see another move similar to this. Don't be surprised if Brandon Jennings is bought out and sent away. Don't be surprised if they try to trade a guy like Jennings, or Monroe gets moved, or if even Andre Drummond gets moved. It's obvious that this team, like you said, they are not a 5-win team. They have more talent than that. They should be better.
What the hell is that about?
But this team is constructed in such a way that Stan Van Gundy can't get out of this team what he needs to get out of them. So he's going to send messages, and he's going to move guys, and whether they be really good pieces like a Greg Monroe or like an Andre Drummond, guys that you think that you have for the future, he's going to move them out of here so he can get what he needs to get in here so he can construct this team the way he wants to build it to move forward. So I think, yeah, there's going to be a few more moves like this down the line, and I think this is basically the salvation moment. This is the one time, like how if you're a drug addict and you have to hit rock bottom, you have to OD and somebody has to bring you back from the grave. That's where this team is. This team has OD'd. They're lying on the floor. Somebody has just took that needle, almost like in Pulp Fiction, where they take the needle and they stick it in her heart and she gets that shot of adrenaline and they revive her. This is their oh God gasping moment where their chest comes up, their eyes open up real wide, and they're sucking for air. That's what this is. That's this moment right here. It will get better from here. I believe that. I truly believe that.
All right, so right at this point in time, Cuz, do you have faith in Stan Van Gundy that he can rebuild this thing and put together a lineup and a team that can successfully compete? What's interesting is that so far, his tenure has been a little bit rocky. I'm a little bit disappointed in terms of the fact that early on, his message hasn't been reached. And yes, the talent is struggling, but there is some talent on this team. You have Andre Drummond, arguably one of the premier young players in the league. You have Greg Monroe. And why is it that these guys did not buy into the message so early on? Was it the fact that, Greg Monroe is just so frustrated that he's played for 4 head coaches and new general manager, the ownership group changed, and he's just checked out? Is it the fact that Brandon Jennings refuses to modify his game? Or is it the fact that Stan Van Gundy, who was out of the game for a little bit, just wasn't able to reach this group? So he is at fault a little bit for the lack of effective play from the Pistons. He's not absolved of any blame, but I do think that the moves that he's brought in, that's how you can judge him. Jody Meeks is a guy that can shoot the ball. Caron Butler is just an overall effective player. He's an efficient. He's a guy that, as a veteran, is showing his worth. He's a guy that's knocking down his shots, is trying his absolute hardest, and gives effort. But the rest of the team is guilty of not showing up for every game. And that's a sign of some issues with the head coach, is why are they not willing to ball out game after game? And so Stan Van Gundy has to decide what type of team he's going to develop and what's he going to do for the rest of the year. You still got roughly 45 games left to improve this team. So this season could get uglier as we progress.
And I don't think the playoffs are totally out of the question at this moment in time. They've got to go on a gigantic winning streak to make the playoffs, but the East is so bad that, they go on a basically a 15 out of 20 game tear. They're back in it. They're back in the conversation at least to be in the playoffs. But I have total in the utmost faith in Stan Van Gundy, and it's just for the move that he made with Josh Smith. This is a move that most general managers, most presidents, most coaches wouldn't do. They would sit there and they'd bite the bullet and they would pay the player. So they would sit there and they would give him the money just to sit there and be a bum.
Is Stan Van Gundy one of your sources?
Yeah, he's one of my guys.
Okay.
Just going by the press conference alone, he's everybody's source at this moment in time. But he was willing to sit there and say, hey, this didn't work. We don't want him here. We're going to bite the bullet and we're going to pay him because we're a much better team without him. Instead of sitting there trying to basically get blood from a stone, they said, go away. Stan Van Gundy has no problem saying, we made a mistake. We have issues here. There's a gigantic problem in this room, and it's this guy. We're going to pay him to go away because we don't want him here anymore. I think I can get more out of this team with him not here. So Stan Van Gundy being able to stand up, address the issues, speak very candidly and openly with the media about the issues, and make the moves, being willing to pull the trigger. Sometimes it's not just talking about it, but it's about being about it. And Stan Van Gundy is totally about it. He pulled the trigger on this move to send Josh Smith away. He didn't want him here. He tried. He tried to reach him. He tried talking to him. He tried having those heart-to-heart moments with him, and it just didn't work with Josh Smith. Josh Smith wanted to play his own game. He wanted to sit there and throw the ball up 84 times a game and miss 75 of those shots. And that's just not going to work here in Detroit. Not now. Not in this rebuilding mode. It's just not going to happen.
It just goes to show how the quality of basketball in the state of Michigan has gone down all across the board. Professionally, at the college level, basketball in the state of Michigan used to be premier, used to be elite. Now, I don't think anybody even wants to talk about basketball.
Oh, don't worry. In Doc's in session, we're going to talk about some college hoops.
All right. Interesting. I'm looking forward to it. I'm just hoping the Pistons turn this around quick. This has been a struggle that's gone on for way too long, and the Pistons need to find ways to turn things around quickly. Otherwise, you're going to have attendance numbers that are going to be so low they could break records. Stay with us after the break. The Jock has questions lined up, and the Doc is ready to deliver. Stay with us.
This is the Detroit Pistons dancing usher. My name is Shannon. And when I'm not at the Palace, I'm listening to Detroit Sports Podcast. Log in, listen in, Have some fun with us. Love this group. Love the station.
I also want to let you guys in on a great website, uofmdiehards.com. Check out their website. They got great blogs, great articles dedicated to all things University of Michigan. They have interviews with Michigan commits. They cover all sports. They break down breaking news in regards to Michigan. Check out their website if you're interested in all this Harbaugh talk. uofmdiehards.com. DocNJock, check out their website quite a bit. If you're a fan of Michigan, if you're a Michigan diehard, there's no better website to check out than uofmdiehards.com.
I'm go blue, baby.
All right, cuz, this is the Doctors in Session, where the Jock has 3 great questions lined up for me, and I'm ready to tackle them. Let's do this.
And you dress up in your silly little outfit, and you come here with your little scepter. All right, let's jump into it.
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man. And I'm saying, woo, right here. I'm the man. Woo!
Speaking of basketball in the state of Michigan, and what a deplorable product it's been as of late. What's up with the recent losses by Michigan, who is absolutely struggling? I know they got a big win over a mediocre program the other night, but you have Michigan and Michigan State losing to competition that is considered much, much lesser of a product. What's going on with these two programs right now?
Right now, cuz, you're seeing what happens when your talent leaves early for the NBA and new guys have to step up, and it's still early in the year and they're not used to their roles. Brendan Dawson for State hurt himself. He hurt his wrist, and he wasn't in the lineup for the loss versus Texas Southern. Tom Izzo comes out and it says, like, back in the day, we would have reviewed the key things that I wanted to point out 200 times, and right now I've only done it 100. But I just think that Tom Izzo is really trying to fool himself and trying to fool us. The talent level at Michigan State is not where it needs to be, and with the loss of a Gary Harris, with the loss of, your senior leadership in Adrian Payne, you have a team that just right now isn't that good and may not be good enough to qualify for the NCAA tournament. And it just stinks right now that Michigan State, after such a long time with a successful run, just hasn't become that national power that can just reload year after year. Now, it's not, I'm not as angry, but it's disappointing in the fact that we're not Kentucky. Guys are not just going to come here. And you really have to question, why didn't Okafor come here? Why didn't Jabari Parker come to Michigan State? It's really frustrating that at this point in time in Tom Izzo's tenure, he's not getting more of the national recruits. And so now you're going to struggle. Denzel Valentine's trying to be a leader, but come on, Denzel Valentine, no knock on the guys, but the talent level is not as high as it used to be at both Michigan and Michigan State. And at Michigan, your biggest problem, I think, is Karis LeVert. This guy is expected to be your leader, expected to make the shots, and his play has been inconsistent at best. For Michigan to lose to Eastern, for Michigan to lose to NJIT, the New Jersey Institute of Technology, just goes to show you that you cannot just roll out on the court and just expect a win. You got to play well on offense, you got to play well on defense, and if your guys are not as talented as the other team and you don't play as well, you're going to lose. And so this is why a lot of people are saying for college basketball, I'll tune in March, and that's about it. And it just stinks for the game, for everybody who's a fan of basketball, for the two best colleges to be struggling. And at this point in time, Michigan State's not even ranked in the top 25. And that makes a Sparty fan like me really sad.
Karis LeVert was the one guy that Michigan was hinging a lot of its hopes on to take that next step in his level of progression and be able to pick up that slack from the guys who did depart to the NBA and help carry that streak on of getting them into the NCAA tournament and making a lot of noise, and also kind of amping it up in the Big Ten. So hopefully Karis LeVert does find his role, like you said. But speaking of the University of Kentucky, you want to talk about a really good product. On, I believe it was Saturday, they basically started the game with a 41-7 lead going into halftime. I mean, they just got out there and they rolled. They started off with a 24-0 run and didn't really look back. So that's a good product out there, and that's what we would like Michigan and Michigan State to be like. But
not there yet.
No, not even close. All right, so your boy Johnny Manziel, $signs. He hurt himself this Sunday, and the Browns fans cheered for his injury. Were they out of line for this?
Did you hear the comments by Cam Newton basically saying, that was really out of line. Yeah. That's really disappointing for fans to act that way. But what would you expect? People don't like guys that are braggadocious, that are considered to have huge egos, that are about flash over substance. And Johnny Manziel is a guy that is the epitome of this new age of athlete who is all about me, all about the attention. You got your picture all over the internet, partying all summer. Your attitude and behavior is not indicative of your rank in the NFL. You're a rookie. And for you to make that money sign and for you to just conduct yourself in that manner, that is why the fans booed him. Should they have? No. It just shows that, fans can be a little bit classless at times, fueled by alcohol, fueled by the fact the Browns are losing and the fact that the Browns gave their season away when they put you in instead of sticking with Brian Hoyer, who gave you the best chance. So now he's the focal point. And now, after his injury, he comes out and says, I should be the starter. I deserve to be there. So he's not, his braggadocious style is not going away. This could be one of the most epic flameouts you ever see in the NFL, just with the fact that his ego is so large and the fact that his talent may not warrant his attitude. And the fans did what they did. I'm not surprised, but it is a little distasteful.
Yeah, this was more, I think, a case of if you're going to be about it and you're going to talk about it, you got to go up and you got to show up. You have to do it. If you're going to talk about it, you better be able to sit there and put your money where your mouth is. Johnny Manziel definitely hasn't done that.
Yeah, and
he hasn't lived up to the hype.
To use a wrestling analogy, you can't act like Ric Flair when you got a bushwhacker personality and bushwhacker talent. Ric Flair's the man. You're not right now. Johnny Manziel's a bushwhacker. Period.
All day long. I like that.
All day.
All right. So I don't know if you've caught this on ESPN, and I think everybody has seen some video of this, or you better go find it. I mean, go to your Google machine and type this in. But the Miami Beach Bowl turned into the Miami Beach Brawl. You had dudes taking helmets off and smacking other guys in the face. You had players sitting there giving forearm shivers and choking each other out in the middle of the field. What were your thoughts of the Monday madness at the Miami Beach Brawl that took place?
Well, we all know Monday night is wrestling night in America, so we all know it. So you got that in mind.
Both these teams, Memphis and BYU, both apparently got the memo.
So the guys at BYU are probably sitting in church or sitting in, some religious facility getting badgered, having to confess what they did. 55-48, Memphis. It was a great game. Memphis was down double digits several times. They came back in overtime. They came back and won the game. Great game. But the brawl, wow, because I saw the highlights and I seen part of the game at the tail end in overtime. It is a situation where something happened that we don't know about that ignited it. And likely, what happened was there's some trash talk going on in the game.
I don't want your PC answer. I want what you were thinking when you were watching this. Were you like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever? Or were you like, this is horrible. College football's not like this.
No,
where were you at with this?
No, I was like, this is great. I like the passion. I like the fact that, right now in this day and age, in terms of football, everyone's like, oh my God, we should be all about player safety and worry. And let's not talk about the violence of the sport.
Dude, a guy took a helmet off and smashed another dude in the side of the head from the backside with it.
Listen, problem is, though, people are watching and you don't want to influence the kids. In a vacuum, I loved it. I love the passion. I love the excitement. That's what makes football what it is. The passion, the excitement, the anger. But you can't take it to that level. You gotta worry about, in this day and age, you never know what happens when you get into a fight, and you don't want to present that to the sponsors of the games, to the nation. And in this 24-hour age, there's probably 1 million Vine videos of him taking his helmet off.
Dude, it's going to be hard to top. This was the very first Miami Beach Bowl. It's going to be hard to top this one ever.
It's going to be hard to top, but it's just a shame that a great game like that is going to be marred by this fight. This is what people are going to talk about. They're not going to talk about the great play of the players that committed and worked hard. Memphis won the game, but all we're talking about now is this epic fight. Great fight. It was great to watch. Check it out on YouTube. It'll live there for a long time with a lot of hits. But
literally a lot of hits.
A lot of hits. A lot of fights. And it'll lead us into our talk in the future with the Lions, who have a player who likes to get a little dirty and get a little nasty on the field.
Can we describe this as horribly awesome and a little bit gruesome? I think that's the best way to describe the Miami Beach Bowl.
My sources say Dom Raiola texted them right away. Texted every party involved, was like, good job. No beef here. No problem.
All right, Doc, that's all I got for you. Great job as always.
Yes, sir. Merry Christmas, everyone. All right, stay with us. After the break, we're going to talk about the Lions. Great win versus Chicago. Some controversy, of course. We can't just get away with a win. There's some controversy with one of our players who won't be there on Sunday. We'll talk about the Lions and their future game versus Green Bay after the break. Stay with us.
You are listening to the Doc and Jock Show on the Detroit Sports Podcast.
You're the future of our business, and I know when you guys have a podcast like this, our future is in good hands.
Making magic on the mics. DocNJock, much to everyone's delight.
All right, cuz disastrous game versus Chicago last week. We really didn't show up, and it really was one of those situations where you think, okay, the Lions were told, you're in the playoffs, celebrate, and they showed up to Chicago not really 100% focused. They didn't play their best game. They didn't play well in really any facet of the game. Matthew Stafford looked like he regressed. The special teams cost us 3 turnovers in the first half, and the Lions were not able to really come out of the game with a lot of momentum. They won the game, but you really looked at that game and were like, oh, if they play like that versus Chicago, how are they going to play in the next coming weeks versus teams that have talent? And everyone's like, well, Matthew Stafford didn't play all that bad. All you got to do is look at Seattle and what they did to Arizona in their third string. They went in Seattle, went to Arizona on the road versus a third-string quarterback and put the hammer down on Arizona. And that's what we were all expecting to see from the Lions. It didn't happen, and history has told us that the Lions in cold weather games don't play as well. They haven't been as successful. But coming out of the game, Jim Caldwell said, hey, I'm not going to complain too much about a win. We fought hard, we overcame our struggles, and we won the game. But unfortunately, the significant issue coming out of that game, Dominic Raiola committed his sixth incident in regards to, conduct on the field. And after the 6th time, the league said, okay, you're suspended. Won't be playing versus Green Bay. And, he's a key piece. The center is a key piece for your offense in terms of making the calls and, setting the offensive line in terms of their protection. And a guy with a lot of experience won't be there in a game that really, even if you play your best, may not be a game you can win. So without him, it's going to be tough. But the game versus Chicago was disappointing. We got the win. We got to 11 wins, but a lot of talking points coming from that game.
My biggest issue from the Chicago game was Matt Stafford's performance. There's no reason that you should enter the red zone and then force the ball into coverage. If anything, live to fight another down and take the 3 points and keep it moving. Essentially, Matt Stafford cost this team at least 6, possibly 14 points by turning the ball over twice in the red zone.
And he hadn't done that, and he only had 2 red zone turnovers in his previous 32 games.
You can't afford to do that. And going into that game, he hadn't had any turnovers. So you can't sit there and you can't force that ball, especially this week going into Green Bay. They will make you pay for it. This offense has to be primed and has to be firing on all cylinders. The Lions are going to have to play essentially a perfect game going into Green Bay. And now that Dominic Raiola has been suspended, 1 game for stomping on the ankle of basically prone Chicago Bear players, you can't do that. You just made everything that much harder on this team because now you're going to have to fill in with a backup center. So there's a comfort level, there is a protection level, there is a basically pointing out who is blitzing job that Dominic Raiola does week in, week out, down in, down out, that now somebody else has to pick up and has to do. This game just went from being extremely difficult to almost impossible for these Lions to win. They had a chance, or they have a chance, I should say, because we can't bury them yet, but they had a chance to win a division and get a first-round bye. Dominic Raiola's action, selfish as they were, has basically put nails into the coffin. It's not completely shut yet, but he had helped put some more nails into that coffin. It was bad enough that it was cold weather. It was bad enough that it was in Green Bay. It was bad enough that it was Aaron Rodgers. And it was bad enough that it was the Packers, where we haven't won since 1991. And now Dominic Raiola goes out and does this.
Also, too, Ziggy Ansah gave Jimmy Clausen a concussion, so that means this weekend the return of Jay Cutler to the starting lineup for the Bears. A little bit too aggressive by Ziggy Ansah. Another mistake made by a young player. I don't think that he has a history of that, and it just goes to show you how tough it is nowadays in this NFL to make a key play, because you got to worry about tackling correctly, not hitting a guy in certain areas, and it's just really tough. But yeah, helmet-to-helmet contact, you just can't do that in this day and age. And Dominic Raiola knows it, and he's going to try to come out and tell us that it's inadvertent. He has to say that, but he's bold-faced lying right to our face. Brandon Marshall on his radio show came out and called him a dirty player. saying that Dominic Raiola
called him a lot of things.
Made fun of his
Worst
mental
player.
Yeah,
ever.
made fun of his mental illness, that he talks junk in the game, and that he's a terrible human being. I'm just going to take it like this. Dominic Raiola hurt the team, and so I'm upset. Because if the Lions should lose and we don't have a chance at home field advantage, you're basically costing us a chance to advance in the playoffs over a stupid move. Over really a stupid move to try and hurt a player. A young player too, 22 years old. What if you had broken his ankle? What if you had, broken a bone and ended the guy's career? Over what? Why would you do that? Your team was a strong favorite to win. It's pretty obvious that if you play well, you're going to win the game. The rivalry is strong, yes, but you don't need to be doing that sort of thing.
It was totally unnecessary, and that's the biggest issue to take from it. There was no reason at that point in the game.
And because with the issue with Matthew Stafford, it just goes to show you right now that it's just inconsistent, and it goes to show you the offense isn't where it needs to be, and with the lack of targets to tight ends, with the lack of a consistent run game, yes, Reggie Bush and Joique Bell played very well this game versus Chicago, but the offense isn't clicking. The game versus Chicago, Stafford and the receivers were a little bit off target. It was kind of interesting. And again, Golden Tate, 5 catches, 62 yards. What's that going to do for you? The key play in the game was the 46-yard pass interference. He was throwing it to Fuller, and the Chicago corner didn't even turn around. Had he just turned around, there's no penalty. And then in the next play, we score. Joique Bell with a great run, and then we take the lead and we win the game. But Matthew Stafford and the receivers were not on the same page a lot of times in the game. There were a lot of passes where, Calvin would run up the sideline and Stafford would throw a back shoulder pass. So there was some miscommunication going on. They weren't on the same page, and you don't target your number one threat, in my opinion, Golden Tate. A lot of people are going to say Calvin should be your number one threat, but I think that if you feature Golden Tate, you're going to have a lot of success on offense. So I'm going to say Golden Tate should be the number one. Calvin Johnson is a strong second, close 1A, but, he got 100 yards. He was very effective. Calvin Johnson is an interesting case right now in terms of the fact that, is he a guy that can get to the next level and get to the point where he can get 2-3 touchdowns a game and can consistently carry this offense? I'm not sure of that because of his presence and the coverages that he gets. Golden Tate has shown this guy makes catches, great in the screen game, makes a lot of plays. Golden Tate in the last 7 weeks, only 1 touchdown, only 1 game with double-digit catches. You're targeting Calvin too much. Whether you agree or disagree who's the number one, you are targeting Calvin way too much, and that's hindering your offense.
I think you make a great point. I think if you target and you try to run that passing game through Golden Tate, that's going to free up Calvin Johnson. I think if Calvin Johnson is a complement to Golden Tate, you're going to see a lot more deep balls thrown Calvin Johnson's way. He's going to get open a little bit more, and he's going to be a little bit more productive. If you let Golden Tate take care of the bubble screens out to a wide receiver, if you let him do that and you let him pick up his yards after the catch, that's going to really open up the deep threat with Calvin Johnson down the field, and you're going to be able to sit there and have those quick strikes where you can sit there and you can go and you can pick up huge chunk plays, 20 yards, 30 yards at a time. And I think that's a really good point that you're making, and I think that helps with that offense, and I think that helps prevent some of those turnovers down the road. Going into Lambeau Field, the offense and Matt Stafford have to sit there and they've got to be perfect. I just pulled the weather up. They're going to be playing in temperatures that's anywhere from 18 to 20 degrees out. It's frigid. On top of it, like we said before, they don't play well in weather like that. They're a dome team. So the run game's going to have to be important. Bubble screens, whether it be to a wide receiver or whether it be to a running back, are going to be important. Calvin Johnson's going to have to sit there and get open. He's going to have to make some long plays. He's going to have to help move this ball. But Matt Stafford and his decision-making, I think, are the key for these Lions to get a win coming out of Lambeau Field. I'm not sure if you feel the same way or not, but I really put a lot of stock into what this offense has to do, because this defense is going to show up. They took care of Aaron Rodgers the first time around. They're going to need a little bit of help this time.
Yeah, the Lions, in order to have success versus Green Bay at Lambeau Field, a place they haven't won since 1991, a place that's haunted them for several years, a place that if they get a victory will earn them their first divisional title in so long. We haven't won a divisional title in so long. It's unbelievable. I think it's been 21 years since our last divisional title. That's unbelievable. 1993. And so you're going to have to go to Green Bay, knock the champ out in order to get the title. Is it going to happen? It's not likely, because the Lions have to play their A-plus game. Everything has to be clicking on offense. Everything has to be clicking on defense. And Matthew Stafford has to outplay Aaron Rodgers. And it still goes to show you that Matthew Stafford's stats against teams with winning records is not that great. This year, cuz we've only got 2 wins versus teams with a winning record, Miami and Green Bay, and they were at home. You're going to Lambeau Field. You're going to have to play better than you've played before. The Lions' play is not really trending upward in terms of the offense. It's kind of been the same. I called it. The Lions are a 20-point team. The Lions are basically a 20-point offensive team. And that's what their baseline is. You think that's going to be enough to beat Green Bay on the road? Hell no.
No. You got to be able to put at least 28 up on them.
Reggie Bush has got to
steps up.
Yeah, Reggie Bush has got to be strong. Joique Bell's got to be on his game. The offensive line can't get Matthew Stafford killed. The offensive line, cuz I understand Matthew Stafford didn't play well, but his ass was hurried all the time. There were not enough chances where he could set and throw to make those good reads. And if Matthew Stafford is hurried like any other quarterback, he's not going to make the key play. And I just think that's going to happen. I just think that Green Bay's talent is slightly better than the Lions' talent. Eddie Lacy is better than anything we got. Jordy Nelson is a consistent wide receiver. Randall Cobb, the use of their tight ends. They have a mastery of the offense, and I just don't see Green Bay letting up on the gas. I think they're going to try to make a statement on the Lions. And so the Lions have to step up and play their A game to take the title. Can they do it? I'm so excited to see them try, but I'm not going to be as disappointed if they don't because I'm not even expecting it. I'm hoping for the best, expecting the worst, but we're going to be in the playoffs. It just doesn't seem, I just don't see the Lions knocking out the Green Bay Packers on the road. I just don't see it.
This is a team that has only scored 24 points or more 5 times this year. That's not going to cut it against Green Bay, not in Lambeau Field. So this team, they're going to need difference makers. They're going to need guys to show up and basically, like you said, ball out. They've got to do what they haven't done almost all season long.
Are you going to be angry or disappointed if they don't take it down in Green Bay?
I'll be a little bit upset because I feel like it's there for them to take it. I feel like they have almost a once-in-a-lifetime defense. I feel like you haven't seen the Detroit Lions put a defensive front and a defensive secondary out there like this in basically ever. I mean, how often have you been able to say that, hey, we can hinge our hopes on this Lions defense, that they're not going to give up. They're not going to let us down. They're going to go out there and they're going to make plays. They're going to intercept the ball when they need to. They're going to show up. You know what? I was sitting there and I was driving around listening to that Chicago game because I was getting a lot of my Christmas shopping done this weekend. And I was sitting in the car and at no point was I nervous. Chicago got down into the red zone and I was like, I'm not worried about it. Even if it goes to 4 downs, I'm not worried that the Lions are going to give up a touchdown. I think that they'll hold. And sure enough, they did time and time again. That defense held. So you have a once-in-a-generation defense right now with these Detroit Lions. That offense just has to be productive and efficient. That's all we need. We need difference makers and playmakers on offense because you know that defense is going to show up. And I think my one guy who has to show up and has to be accountable and has to take things onto his own shoulders is Matt Stafford. I think Stafford shows up, doesn't turn the ball over, and makes the correct reads and puts the ball in the correct places. I think this team has a chance to win the division, get a first-round bye, and I think the playoffs, I mean, we can then legitimately possibly talk about maybe a Super Bowl.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying, Matthew Stafford is disrespected around here. If you want the respect, Matthew, this is the game. Let's go. Go get it.
This is the game.
Go earn your respect, and we'll talk about it afterwards. But yeah, you want respect? This is the game to do it. This is the game where you got to throw for 350, 4 touchdowns, lead this team, and be efficient. Be the MVP, be the number one guy.
Rodgers, you don't even have to do that. You just have to be accountable.
That's what Aaron Rodgers is going to be pumped for this game. He might be hindered by that calf injury. That might be a factor. I'm hoping that it flares up, that it doesn't heal as well as it needs to. Maybe Olivia Munn's out of town and she doesn't rub it up as she needs to. But if Aaron Rodgers is on point, making the throws, and they start off, let's just say this. If Green Bay's up 14-0 after the first quarter, game's over. They're not going to come back. I don't see that happening. So that's just my take on it. Start fast. Start fast. Let's go.
Matt Stafford can't turn the ball over, and he's got to be productive and efficient. I think if he's productive and he's efficient, I think this team has a great shot to win. Because I think this defense will force a couple turnovers.
All right, man. It's happening this Sunday. For it all. Detroit, Green Bay, as we all thought it would be, as it should be. Let's just play our best game and let's see where the chips fall. Go Lions, baby. Let's just go. We're all hoping, but I'm not going to be disappointed if it doesn't happen. So last week, cuz, we both got 3 points correct in the Pick'em Challenge, and so that means I'm leading, 46-44?
45-43.
45-43. This week, the games are a little bit easier to pick in terms of the spread. There's a lot of matchups in the last week that are juicy, and I'm looking forward to kicking this bad boy off.
Let's do it.
Real simple. With my first pick, Denver is going to be upset. They're going to be furious over the way they played versus Cincinnati on Monday night. Oakland's coming to town, so Denver, lock it down. It's going to crush Oakland.
I'm sticking with that same game. I got the Broncos. They're upset. They're furious. Apparently Cincinnati knew something, and they threw all kinds of crazy looks at Peyton Manning. Oakland, what are they really playing for? They're playing for Jim Harbaugh. That's all they got. I think Denver rolls Oakland.
All right, cuz, for all the marbles, a game that's going to decide the AFC North. Pittsburgh at home versus the Cincinnati Bengals. And I do believe that teams that play on Monday night do struggle. I should have went with my gut last week. I was wrong. I had a feeling. You hear it in my voice? I got a feeling New Orleans played on Monday night. I had that feeling, but I just couldn't pull the trigger. And this time I'm going to pull the trigger. Cincinnati played on Monday night in an emotional game. There's a tendency to have a little letdown, and I just don't see Pittsburgh losing that game at home for the title. So my second pick, I'm taking the Steelers over the Bengals.
All right. Sticking with what you took with that Monday night kind of thought process and kind of touching on your Saints. The Saints play really good on the road. They play like crap at home. Saints are on the road this week, taking on the Bucs. Saints are given 4 on the road. I'm taking the Saints -4 to roll over the Bucs.
It's tough for any team to go to New England and play well. They're perennially in the playoffs with a chance to win the Super Bowl. Now, they haven't won the Super Bowl in a long time, but that's an organization that you should model yourself after. So with my third pick, I like New England at home over the Buffalo Bills.
All right. Going with the team that you basically have rode like a cheap whore all season long. I'm going with the Colts over the Titans. Titans burned me last week. Andrew Luck burned you in fantasy. So off the burner, I'm taking the Colts over Tennessee.
Yeah, good choice there. Good choice. Now to the Lions game, a game that's going to decide it all. What's going to happen? This opening spread is 7.5, and that's what we're going with. I like this game in the 20s for both teams. I like it being in the area of 27, 23, 26, 24, in that close game area. I don't see any team, one or the other, getting ahead too much in this game. So can the Lions step it up and keep up with the Green Bay Packers? Can they take over the division as the champs and become divisional champs? No. I picked the Green Bay Packers to win 27-24 or 26-23 in that area. But I do have the Lions covering the spread. I'm going to take the points. So with my bonus pick for the 2 points, I got the Detroit Lions plus 7.5.
I should just go the opposite way here. I should just take Green Bay, lay the points, and just run away from you. But I don't know if this is a homer pick. I don't know if I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid, eating the cornbread, smearing the freaking Honolulu blue butter all over my body. I'm not really sure what it is. I think this defense is going to show up. I think they're going to cause problems for Aaron Rodgers. I think this offense will be effective. I think they'll sit there and they'll possess the ball. I think Matt Stafford will control it. I don't believe he's going to turn it over. So I'm going to go the Lions plus 7.5. I think they win the division. I think they get that bye. I think it's so close they can taste it. I think they've learned how to win. You've seen these games where the same old Lions would have lost it. I think this team has learned how to win. So if you put them in a position to where they can win this game, I think they win it and they roll away with the NFC North Championship.
So what we've learned on this podcast, the Jock is branching out. He's got Stan Van Gundy and Jim Caldwell on the dole as his sources, and he's picking the Lions.
The homer picks.
The homer picks, the objective Jock with the degree, with the journalism degree. Great podcast, cuz. We just want to say Merry Christmas again. Happy holidays to everyone. Happy Hanukkah. Happy
Kwanzaa. Everything. Whatever you celebrate. Happy whatever.
We just want to thank everybody that downloads this podcast. Thank you for everyone that's allowed us to continue to do this week after week by contributing on our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com, by downloading this every single week, by sharing it, by interacting with us on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. We greatly appreciate it. We can't thank you enough. So if you like what you're hearing, tell a friend, tell 1 or 2 friends, hey, this is a great podcast. This is a chance for us to say whatever the hell we want without any restrictions, without anybody over our shoulder, and it makes it so much fun to talk about and watch Detroit sports. Thank you to everybody. We greatly appreciate it. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. This has been episode 72 of the Detroit Sports Podcast. Party time.
I like candles. Go Lions!
They have been called a dirty ball club, and I can see why. This is a typical disgusting display by Rodman, Lambeer, and Isaiah Thomas. The yellow, gutless way they do things here.
Every time I go out, you know I got to show out. Every time I go out, you know I bring the dough out.